Hi everybody, my name is Jake with the Alliance for Innovation and Infrastructure, and me and several other college students from across the country and even across the world are staying here in DC for the summer. I thought that since we have this unique experience with unique perspectives from all across the country, that I thought I would ask my peers to compare and contrast really DC's infrastructure to their infrastructure back home. Thanks for watching. What would you give as the definition of infrastructure?
I would say like physical structures that people use to do the things that they need to do in their life, whether that's work or get places or gather with community.
Wow, I would define infrastructure as the multitude of different things that allow human beings to move around and really just engage in a whole host of different activities, such as, like I just mentioned, move around, but also like, a place to live in, a place to shop in, a place to work in, etc.
The physical and virtual systems and facilities that allow society to operate, and especially private enterprise to operate.
Okay.
So we're talking about the movement of people as well as goods and services, but also where do we get our energy from and stuff like that.
How many times a day would you say that you think about infrastructure, if any?
Not really in the sense of like, oh, I'm thinking that's infrastructure.
Not a lot, honestly. Like maybe once or twice.
Not very often, unless it's in the news, I guess.
I mean, honestly, not that much, but it's definitely a buzzword, I guess.
Probably once or twice.
I didn't used to think about it very much, but since I've started using canes and wheelchairs, that determines what buildings I want to enter, so probably upwards of a dozen times a day.
How dependent do you think you are on infrastructure?
Probably very dependent, at least here in DC. I use the metro like every day, so.
I know me personally in DC, I'm very dependent upon that with both the metro, but also back home, very dependent where we have a lot of mountainous roads.
Oh, wholly like dependent. Like I don't think you could live your life without infrastructure. Like, how would you get to work? How would you live? Where would your house be? Like, where would your gym be? Where would you meet your friends? Like, it's all dependent on that. So I don't think you can say that we can exist without infrastructure because it's the basis for a society.
Oh, I'd say I'm very independent on infrastructure, and so is everyone else, because I think, it's what allows people to get around, it's what allows for transportation to happen. So, I mean, I use the sidewalk, being in DC, I use the metro, so I use infrastructure every day.
What's your preferred method of transit around DC?
I love taking the metro, or I like biking as well.
Metro. I love the metro. Metro.
I've really liked the metro system around DC. I've been surprised by how easy the buses are as well. It's been a lot stronger than where I'm from.
Metro. Walk and then metro.
Definitely the metro. I am a big metro girl. I think it's much more easy than the bus because I feel like whenever I'm waiting for the bus, it's never on time and I don't really know what to expect. But I can always see when the metro is going to come in. It's very regular and it's very easy and affordable.
The metro.
What do you consider your home outside of DC?
Phoenix, Arizona.
Okay, what is your preferred method of transit in Phoenix?
Cars. Phoenix is not a very walkable city, and it has a horrendous transportation system, so you need a car to get around.
But in Kansas City, definitely a car because there's no metro system there.
Well, I guess where I live at home in the suburbs, I use a car because it's way less walkable. I think public transit is probably my preferred method anywhere I am.
Walk and metro. Paris, same thing.
My feet and my bicycle. And the trains.
Because you're from Germany, correct?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
We have a tram system where I'm from in Tucson, and I really like taking the tram there.
Car. Yeah. I'm from Arizona. Not great public transportation.
How would you rate DC's infrastructure?
Honestly, I'd say a 7. It's pretty good.
Bad stuff, probably 5 or 6.
The public transportation system is very good. The sidewalks themselves are not very strong.
If we're talking about transportation, I would give it a 9 out of 10 because the metro is actually very, very good. It's just that the bus system sometimes is a bit strange and delayed, and there's not a lot of information online on, for example, when a bus departs or something like that.
Oh, it's great. I think it's great. I think it's clean, and I think it runs well.
Maybe a 7 out of 10.
I would give it maybe a 7 out of 10.
Okay, how would you rate your home's infrastructure?
Maybe like a 5 out of 10.
Because I would say more like 9 or 10, just because I prefer driving for the most part, and where I'm from is a little more suburban. You can't really walk anywhere, so I feel like that kind of infrastructure where I'm from is so much easier.
Back at home, it's not very walkable. There's a lot of construction all the time, so.
And then you're from Chicago?
Yeah, Chicagoland.
Okay.
So I don't know. It's okay.
Yeah.
6, 7. It does what it needs to do.
So I have a bad opinion on the Parisian metro system. Because it's starting to cost a lot and it's not that great. They're taking away trains and it just doesn't work all that great most of the time. The New York subway is kind of hectic, but in the Netherlands it's really good. It's clean. It's also the same.
Probably about like a 4.
Other places that I've lived, I'd say it ranges from 3 to 5.
And you're from Salt Lake City?
Yes, I'm from Salt Lake City.
And then how would you rate America's infrastructure as a whole?
It's such a patchwork system. It's really not very reliable, and I've lived in Miami, I've lived in Missouri, I've now been in DC for a bit. Everywhere that I've lived has had wildly different infrastructure systems to where you're starting from scratch learning each one.
Awesome.
As a whole, America, especially compared to Britain, a 3.
I would say when it comes to roads and highways, it's excellent. My family's from Hungary and we go to Hungary a lot, and the highway system there is pretty awful. But when it comes to trains, that sort of thing, Hungary and a lot of other parts of Europe really excel at that. United States, not so much. I just took Amtrak up to New York over the weekend, and it was not a fun experience.
1.
Overall, I'd say 4.5 to 5.
8 out of 10.
It's very poor if it's not in concentrated areas, and I don't believe like in all big cities they have public transport. Otherwise, for the roads, I think it's great. It's very spacious to me, coming from Europe, and yeah, it's easy to navigate.
If I had a business over here and I would speak to you as a businessman, I would probably give it 8 or 9 out of 10. But as a tourist and as a private citizen moving around, I would probably give it a 6 out of 10.
What would you change about DC's infrastructure?
I would probably better the metro itself specifically, because compared to the tube in London, It is horribly outdated, it's extremely unclean, unsafe, the trains are never on time. So definitely work on fixing that aspect.
I would say probably bigger roads, and then I would probably change like how fast the lights are going, because I feel like a lot of things get slowed up just because you get like 1 minute crossing walks, which is not needed for the most part. But that's how I would probably do it. In the bigger lanes, then things can get a little more because the traffic's insane, and then yeah.
I would make the sidewalks more walkable. There's a lot of them where they're really run down or hard to do, and like I feel like a lot of the crosswalks aren't very person friendly. There's no signs, and the cars just feel like they have the right of way. And sometimes I've almost gotten hit by a car, seen people get hit by cars. So I think more pedestrian safety and really making it easier to walk would be a good way to improve the infrastructure.
I think some of the train lines could have been done better. Like if I want to go over here and I'm here, I could just go here.
Yeah.
But instead I have to go there. But I also understand that there's going to be limitations no matter what we do.
I'd say add more bike share stations.
More bicycle lanes. Maybe even the introduction of purely pedestrian areas.
And then what would you change about America's infrastructure if you could?
I would have high-speed rail going from every corner of this country, so that you could literally go from Maine to Oregon.
Oh, definitely accessibility as a total. I know there's other areas where it's like there's no sidewalks, or like the sidewalks just end, or there's no bus stops or shade or anything like that, so probably that.
I'd increase more public transit. I think that's a big key, I guess, to minimizing our carbon footprint.
America's infrastructure overall, I like the highway interstate system. I think it's a very good method of transportation, but I also think that the United States needs to adopt like a nationwide high-speed rail system.
I think that having such a patchwork system makes it so that there's a lot more barriers to accessing education or accessing work if you can't afford a car.
Walkability, especially in some of the rural areas. It affects so many parts of our lives, and it feels really distant from, you really feel distant from your community when the only way you see them is like in your car.